largest city in EU is London, which has a population of 8.539 million according to Google statistics in 2014. And its counterpart in North America is New York with a population of 8,406 million, which is very close to that of London. They are really two big cities across Atlantic Ocean in terms of political and economical influence as well. The distance from London to New York is 5,585 kilometers. It takes 6 hours, 47 minutes by plane from New York to London and vice versa. And in just middle on the way, that is, about 3 hours and 20 minutes after the takeoff, there's a very interesting thing in the sea. It's a huge grid in the sea, which is known to very few people. All pictures I show here are patchworks of Google Earth images. And as you see, patchwork is not always easy because Earth is round while pictures are flat. There are always some inevitable discrepancies owing to conversion from spherical geometry to plane geometry. I tried to minimize gaps as much as possible, but you'll still see some here and there. How I wish Earth was flat. Of course, it's a mere coincidence for this grid to be located in equidistance from two major modern cities on the surface of Earth. I mentioned this geographical fact only because that makes it easier to remember the location. Size matters. Size decides. Sometimes size decides everything. Size itself can be far more important than shape. A shape of grid with the size of 700 kilometers by 600 kilometers is completely different from the same shape with a size of 700 meters by 600 meters. We human beings can reproduce the latter, that is, the smaller one. But as for the former, the size of 700 kilometers by 600 kilometers, it is almost impossible for our human technology to reproduce it not only on the seafloor but even on the ground. It's not a three-dimensional solid structure. It's almost two-dimensional in terms of geography. Even so, it would be impossible for us to reproduce this grid with this huge size. Do we have any counterpart comparable to this huge grid? Many people would think of so-called Nazca geoglyphs. I repeat, size matters. All of Nazca formations belong to the size of 40 meters to 300 meters. The famous spider is 36 meters, the hummingbird is 96 meters, the condor is 135 meters, the iguana is 180 meters and the largest one, the flamingo, is 285 meters. They are all within human capacity. Actually, we can produce one in a day using some people. It is clear that they were created by the people who belong to mankind. How about the 700 kilometers long grid? Do you think it was created by the people who belong to mankind, the people like us? It is completely pointless to compare this gigantic formation with Nazca lines. And it is even misleading to do so in understanding this huge formation objectively, that is, without anthropocentrism. Please don't forget that size matters. Size decides. This grid is imperfect as a grid. We call it a grid for the sake of naming, for the sake of reference. This grid is impressive for its scale and elaboration, although we know nothing about its use, function and meaning. Besides insane or joking people, normal people would not insist that they are all natural and the results of natural mechanism by natural forces alone. So, most of them think they are artificial. And they come up with the most plausible explanation based on mechanism within human technology. But the term artificial is not necessarily man-made. Logically speaking, man-made is only an example of artificial. The term artificial can mean made by authors other than humans. But people with little imagination, that is, with little capacity of brains, automatically refer to explanation based on human activity alone. On the other hand, there are debunkers who insist these tracks are mere illusions generated by sonar technology and imaging process. They enter to rescue people driven by anxiety who happen to face reality. They try to assure crying babies that there's nothing to worry about. They say that's only your imagination or illusion, and there are no real counterparts out there. This theory, which I call survey ship theory, is a feeding bottle to be given to crying babies. The first theory, trawler theory. Some naive people reflexively think of trawler theory, which tries to explain huge tracks on the seafloors by dragfish net. But knowledgeable grown-ups will soon realize that this theory is totally useless and sounds convincing only to small children. The second theory, survey ship theory, and the less naive people turn to survey ship theory, which sounds far more promising than simple low-tech trawler theory. According to this second theory, all tracks are only illusions generated by the difference of resolutions of sonar images taken by navigating ships and the background satellite images taken from far above in the sky. The gist of the theory is that those tracks are finger scribbled on a fogged window. Oh, that sounds fairly sophisticated and convincing. Thank God, mystery solved. The theory sounds indeed more sophisticated with technical jargon from sonar technology and digital imaging. Then many people are relieved to find a seemingly final theory, which sounds more complicated and requires more time to explain. Even without checking the logic and scientific feasibility in its explanation, most people automatically think the mystery has been solved by this so-called scientific explanation. They simply want to be relieved from uncomfortable fact as soon as possible. And survey ship theory sounds sophisticated enough to be a killer theory. Problem solved. Anxiety removed. Accordingly, survey ship theory becomes the favorite blanket for many Linuses. They suck on it and feel comfortable and secured. In fact, 99.999% of people in the world is Linus. And those poor people need such blankets to get a sense of security, which should not be taken away. So we should refrain from pulling the blanket to pieces for the sake of politeness and public peace. We had better not make enemies unnecessarily. Actually, survey ship theory is as useless as trawler theory for all its sophisticated jargons. The difference is only that the second one uses more words, buying more time than the first one, but doesn't stand up to close scrutiny. It's a dummy tank. Trawler theory is the first defense line, and survey ship theory is the second ditch, and actually the last one, but it's an inflatable dummy tank. People with unbiased judgment and seasoned insight will waste no time in seeing the truth. They will realize at a glance that the composition of tracks and its scale don't belong to human civilization at all. And they also penetrate inflatable survey ship theory, which can fool only children and naive people. 12.5 kilometers is width and not the length. Please don't be confused. The length is hundreds or thousands of kilometers. We don't know exactly what these linear traces are. We can speculate as we like about what they are. Bottom line is that they are results of some undersea activities by a certain intelligent race other than us human beings. The history of Earth might have to be rewritten completely. All textbooks might need to be rewritten, including this another civilization, which must be supported by far more dominant race than mankind. Intelligent beings in the universe must know the 10th planet of our solar system is a planet harboring civilization, indeed. but they must take it for granted that major civilization is under the water, not on the marginal area, the land. Which part would intelligent beings in outer space think has more activities and more traces of civilization on Earth, the land or the sea? Every civilization must be armed with its own technology to survive. Every civilization reveals itself with geometrical construction, as Carl Sagan once said. We should face this undeniable fact squarely. It's not likely that these linear traces represent solid architectural constructions. It's most likely that they are simply tracks or linear depressions left by correspondingly huge vehicles or entities. At least that would be the simplest explanation, with no additional entities to be explained at this moment. We have no comparable counterparts on the surface of land, do we? For the sake of reference, we call some ebbing which left those linear tracks just crawlers, since they must have been left by something crawling around on the sea floors. But we have very few reports or testimonies which mention something like that. Even underwater, the size of more than 10 kilometers is too gigantic not to be noticed by humans. No matter whether there are testimonies or not, there are traces of some activities under intelligent control beyond all doubts. We can hardly classify them as natural phenomena. They must be results of some engineering activities underwater. Who could deny that?